Beth, at this time, if you want to go ahead and open up the slide deck. For those of you who are with us tonight, there is a Q&A feature on your screen that you can use to ask questions as we're presenting. We'll probably hold most of the questions until the end in case we answer those throughout the rest of the slide deck. But again, I want to welcome you to Standards-Based Learning as we talk about the work that has been happening for quite a number of years in order to prepare for upcoming changes to our elementary report card. Beth, if you can go ahead and go to the next slide. Just to give a little bit of context to what we're talking about. Whenever we are planning for learning, there are 4 essential things that kind of guide our work. The curriculum is the what we want students to learn, the skills we want them to have, and then using the curriculum, we then design instruction. These are the resources, the learning activities, and they should be connected back to the what of curriculum. And then we assess, are students actually learning what we have taught, and make adjustments to instruction based on that assessment. And then finally, we have grading. And when we talk about grading, we really should think about that as communication. Communicating with you and with your children about their progress, their mastery of that learning. And in a perfect world, all of these things work together. There are no broken links. What we are instructing is exactly what we plan to instruct. The assessment is showing that our students are mastering it. And then what we're reporting in terms of grading to you is directly connected back to those skills. I will say historically in education, these links sometimes can get broken, and it happens often at that grading element where we are reporting out in terms of what students are learning, but is it always directly connected back to that curriculum? So that's been our work over these past few years to really make sure all of these things work well together so that you as families understand not only what are your children learning, but is that correlated to what we would expect them to be learning? Next slide, please. So as Beth transitions to this slide, I wanted to just kind of show you how long we've been working on this. This has been a very detailed process. We started back in the 2016-17 school year recruiting teachers to help us really develop this work. We knew that we could have an idea about how to make our curriculum stronger, our learning expectations and outcomes for students stronger, but ultimately it's our teachers in the classroom who make it happen. So they needed to be a part of guiding how this would work so that it would be successful. And so then in 2017-18 school year, we had a group of 43 people, primarily teachers who studied. We did book studies. We researched what other districts were doing. And we ultimately developed priorities and set goals that would ensure that we were looking at consistent and accurate reflections of student learning, growth for all learners, and getting our students to own part of that work. And then for the last 4 years, even during COVID, we have really been doing a lot of this work behind the scenes, updating our curriculum processes with priority standards. You're going to see proficiency scales tonight. There's been a lot of professional learning with staff and honestly, even with parents. Just before COVID, we had a gentleman by the name of Rick Wormley spend a day with our teachers, and then he did an evening event as well. And Rick is a national researcher, author, and speaker all around how to make our practices better in terms of outcomes for student learning. So we had a great parent night with him as well. And then since then have been really engaged with our families through Teaching and Learning Board Advisory. They've been instrumental in giving feedback around this work as we continue to develop it. And then ongoing communications with our Board of Education through meetings and through board workshops so that we are ready to share with you tonight some of the things that we've been working on in preparation for the elementary report card next year. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Hamby to guide the rest of the conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Sparks. So thank you all for joining us tonight. I have prepared 107 slides. So sit back, relax, and let's have some fun talking about grading practices. So a little bit about our vision. Dr. Sparks kind of told you that it's basically been 6 years that this has been in motion. And really the why is we think we can do a better job communicating learning to students, to parents, and to our own staff. It's all about learning. That's the first line here in my presentation, really, and I want to make sure I spend a little time with this because It's not about grades, it's not about passing or failing, it's not about percentages or points. It is about where is a student in their learning and what's next. And we want to be very clear and precise and accurate when we have conversations with parents and with students about where are you in your learning and what's next. Allows students to set goals for themselves. It allows parents to know, hey, here's what you're doing well at, here's what we need to work on if I'm going to give you some help at home. So really that's what's driven us, and we've learned from some other school districts. We tried to see what has worked and what hasn't worked, and build our system. And we're confident. We know that the first year of implementation, there's always going to be some hiccups, and I'm just going to go ahead and thank you in advance for your patience as we go through this. And we're going to do a great job with instruction. I have no worries about that at all, but sometimes the actual reporting of it and dealing with some new forms and stuff like that can get a little confusing. But like I said, our bottom line is we want to be very accurate and very consistent in our practices so we can measure and communicate student learning to our families. And one of the things that's very important to me is looking at learning as a progression. I have 2 kids in the district. I hope they never watch this because I might say some things about them tonight. So, sometimes they chase points. Oh, I have to get this many points to get this grade. Or I got this grade, I'm done. I don't have to worry about that ever again. And really, learning should never end. It's a progression that we go from one set, or we hop over to, I'm going to use ladders as an analogy of learning in a little bit. And we hop from one ladder to the next, but we're never finished. We're never done with learning. And that's kind of a mindset that we'll have to get into as a staff and as a community and as students. Next slide, Beth. So what is a standard-based report card? So really, it's a report that's going to give you more information about where your student is in their learning, in their progression of learning. So instead of just receiving, hey, I got a B in math, you might get a more accurate breakdown of, oh, you're doing well in addition and subtraction. We need to do some work in multiplication, and we are just getting started in division. So it's going to break things down into what we call priority standards. So these are the essential skills that we say each student, by the end of whichever grade they're in, these are the essential skills we want you to master before you head to the next grade level. And we will work on those, and those are the things that are going to show up on the report card. So previous report cards would just have reading, writing, math, science, and you would get 1 letter grade for those things. Now we'll have, those are going to be the sections, but each section is going to have these different priority standards listed underneath it. And students will kind of get a mark to let you know where they are in their learning at the time. So I've got examples of those that will come up in later slides. Next slide, please, Beth. So what's the purpose? So I've kind of said it a few times with our why. We just want to give a clear picture of where a student is in their learning. Where are they at in mastering these essential skills? And each grade level, we've spent a few years working on what are the essential skills, what are these priority standards for each grade level. And we've gone back and forth. Tara mentioned the board advisory. I remember, I think 3 or 4 years ago, giving the board advisory members these copies of the priority standards at each grade level and getting some revisions and feedback on them. They've gone out to the teachers multiple times for feedback. We've changed them and rechanged them and changed them again multiple times, trying to perfect them. They'll probably never be perfect, but it's an ongoing effort. And we want to, let kids know and let families know, based on these essential skills, where are you at a couple points during the school year? And are you on progress to master these by the end of the school year? So here we have, I started to get into some analogies now for a little bit. So at the top, kind of a picture of a math grade on a traditional report card. So this is something that would have been on my report card when I was younger, or maybe even my daughter who's at the high school now, her report card might look like this. And in fact, we'll pick on my daughter for a second. So this comes home, my daughter's got 71% in math, that's a C. All right, what does it tell me? I'm not sure. What does the C mean? What does 71% mean? So I get into SIS and I start looking up her grade book. Let's see what she's got. It's like, okay, we got this percentage on this homework score and this percentage on this quiz and this percentage on this project, but it still isn't telling me How can I help her? What can I work with her? So in contrast to that, we have our standards-based report at the bottom. Now, that's not a high school report card, of course, but we have it broken down into operations and base 10, and here's 4 essential skills at this grade level, and then 2 essential skills for operations and fractions, and then 3 essential skills within geometry and measurement. So as I look at this, I can say, okay, doing outstanding in addition, doing well in rounding and subtraction. We're getting there in multiplication. Got some work to do in fractions. We're just beginning our understanding of fractions. We got some work to do in area. So now as a parent, I know when she comes home, here's the things I can help you with. Here's the things I know that are next in your learning. And I also know what you're already doing well. So that kind of goes back to our whole reason for doing this, is to be more accurate and give more clear communication on where students are in their learning. Next slide, Beth. So I get every month from OnStar, I get this report. It tells me different things about my car. So I kind of had this analogy of, I go to the mechanic and say, how's my car doing? I'm getting ready to trade it in. What do you think? Oh, your car's a B+. Well, what is that? So I don't know. But like I said, I also get this report from OnStar. It tells me the engine's in great shape, the battery's in great shape, transmission's great. Uh-oh, the brakes are in trouble, and the tires are okay. Maybe we want to take a look at it. That tells me a lot more than B+. That tells me a lot more than 88%. And this is what we hope standards-based learning is going to do for our students, our teachers, and our families. So I mentioned ladders earlier. This is kind of how my mind works. I have these different visuals going on. And I look at learning as a progression. We're climbing up ladders. We start at the bottom. We're just getting started. And as we're developing those essential skills, we might need some support down there at the bottom. We start to develop our prerequisite skills. We're getting the vocabulary down for this topic. We climb up a few more rungs and we're nearing mastery. And then finally we get to mastery, and that is our target. Now you're going to hear me say mastery is the target several times this evening, because that's the target we're going for. At the end of the year, that's the end of the race. That's where we want to get. We might go beyond that. I get that. The year's not over. I'm going to go ahead and get on the next grade level's ladder, and I'm going to start climbing that. Or if I'm down at the bottom, it's like, I can't get started. I still need more help. Maybe I wasn't quite finished with the ladder below. Maybe I need to go back down and make sure I had good balance on those rungs. But it never stops. We're just moving from ladder to ladder, depending upon where we are in our life. So this might be our better analogy. This is the one that I've used with teachers that they seem to like. Yeah, we have to learn to ride a bike. By the end of the year, I want you to learn to ride a bike. So we start off, we're still developing our essential skills. We're riding our tricycle. Time goes on, we get some lessons, and we move from the tricycle to the training wheels. So I'm nearing mastery at this point. And then finally, I've met my target. I've mastered the essential skill of riding a bike, and that's what I wanted to get to. Now, there are going to be some students that go beyond it. They're going to jump to that next ladder. They're riding wheelies on the bike. Maybe they're even riding on ramps. And that's not the expectation for everyone. If they're there, they're exceeding our expectations. But that's okay. You can do that, but that's not our target. Our target was just to ride a bike, and that's where we're trying to get by the end of the school year. Now, if you see at the bottom, you can see the SD, the NM, the ME, and the EE. So we'll go ahead to the next slide, Beth, and I'll talk a little bit more about these. So we're kind of moving to some coding. I'm not really caught up in the grades. If I had my way, we would just talk about where students are in their learning and share these kind of scoring guides that we have. But I think it's easy sometimes to quantify and put the score on it. It's what we're used to. So we took a lot, and I will tell you, this took a lot of time to gain consensus on what these were going to be. This was no easy task to land on these. But one thing was important to us was we wanted some coding that would kind of let you know and make sense where your students were. So we used some of the coding that's already been on our primary, our K-2 report cards, and we try to keep it somewhat the same. So it's going to look somewhat familiar to those parents. So moving away from A, B, C, and D, we wanted to move into some coding that made sense. So we have EE, which means exceeding expectations. That means you passed the target, you've gone beyond what we had hoped you would do, which is great. It's not for everyone. Not every child will get there, but it's something that we're not going to, learning never stops. So it's just our way of saying, hey, you climbed all the way past the ladder, or you not only can ride the bike, you can do tricks. ME is mastery of the essential skill or the essential standard. And that means that student has consistently shown that they know they've met the learning targets of kind of what we set we want to be by the end of the school year. NM is nearing mastery. We're getting close. We haven't quite mastered everything, but we're really getting close. We're definitely on track. And then we have SD, still developing. Now, I think that previously in our report cards, SD, still developing, had kind of a negative connotation. It's almost like, oh, that's a bad grade. And that's not the case. This is the starting point. We're developing those beginning skills. So a normal progression of learning would be still developing, and then we would move to nearing mastery, and then we would move to mastery of the essential skill or essential standard. So those are the first ones. And then we also have, we're struggling a little bit with those beginning skills, and we need a little help. We have AC, which in the past has been area of concern, and it might still equal area of concern. It also might equal that, hey, there was that ladder beneath me. Maybe I didn't completely finish that ladder. I might need to go down to this alternative content or alternative curriculum. I need to finish up some of these prerequisite skills so that I can do better on this grade level ladder. So we'll be very clear with that with parents, but it's kind of, I'm not ready for those beginning skills. I still need a little work on my prerequisites. I need some support. Some students, we might have a different program that we're using. If you have a student who has an individualized education plan, we might be using a different program or a different curriculum with them. We're going to mark on the report card. It's a modified program, and then the teacher will share, here's exactly what your student is doing. And there is a chance that we might have to mark that's not assessed. Maybe in these first few years, as we're transferring over to this new system, we don't get as far as we thought we were going to go by the end of a grading period. And we might say, hey, we thought we would get finished with this unit. We didn't, so it's not assessed at this time. So we reserve that one out there, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe we won't have to use that one much or at all, but we may have to. All right, so what's different? So one of the big differences, we are going to do 3 trimesters instead of 4 quarters in our school year. So the reason for that is that teachers are going to be collecting a lot of evidence of learning from our students. And we want to make an informed decision on, when we communicate, here's where your student is. We want that to be, based on good evidence from observations in the classroom. And that takes a little time. As a teacher, that first quarter in mid-October seems to come by like the snap of a finger. It's like, we just started the school year, and it's already time to do report cards. So we wanted to extend it to trimesters. It just gives us a few more weeks. So the first trimester actually ends in November 4th. And the second trimester, I believe, ends in February 16th. So we just extended it out to give our staff a little bit more time to collect the evidence they need to give an accurate report when it comes time. One way I like to look at this is, though, it's not 3 report cards, but the first 2 are more progress reports. We're just giving you a report of what progress is your student making, because these are end of year goals. And then the last one, the end of the year, that's our final report card. So a little bit different than what we've done. We're not collecting points. We're not averaging grades to get percentages. It is a different grading scale. So we'll be using the mastery of essential skills and nearing mastery and still developing. And hopefully that's going to make sense versus a traditional scale of A, B, C, D, where A stands for, okay, well, maybe that wasn't a good example, because the B stands for, no, I don't know what the B stands for either. But the C is average. I don't know how that works either. So I really think our system's better, because it should be very clear on how we're doing, because I really don't understand the traditional one too much and where those letters came from. And I grew up in Festus, and we had ESMI. See if that makes any sense to me. K through 5 will be using the same grading scale all the way through. Currently, primary has one set of grades, and then intermediate has a different set of grades. So everyone K through 5 will be using the same system. And students are going to receive a progress score for each standard, not just the core content area, kind of what I described earlier, showed the sample. And as I said, students are working towards end of year outcomes. So a normal learning progression, we begin with still developing, and then we work our way towards nearing mastery, and then we move on to mastery the essential skill. Now, different students are going to hit that at different times. Different standards will hit at different times in the school year. So in the past, sometimes we'd like, oh, I hope my student gets straight A's in the first quarter. Well, that may not be the case because we might not have taught to the mastery level at the end of the first trimester. So, I mean, the extent of what we might be hoping to be at is still developing at the end of the first trimester, and then nearing mastery at the second, and then just pushing towards that mastery level at the end of the year. So it's kind of a different scale of the system, and I know it will take a little getting used to. And like I said, I appreciate your patience as we kind of change our mindset about this and move forward. So here's an example of why we're changing. So two students here, myself being Craig, and my counterpart in the office next to me, Jill, Dr. Lawson. I use her as an example, and she's a go-getter, and she's sharp, and she's the red line. And I put these numbers in a spreadsheet, and I figured out the numbers that I put in for Jill, those were the grades we collected. She had a 98% for this grading period. So we all know a 98% is an A. That's the grade that Jill would have gotten at the end of this grading period. Craig here is slow to get started. He's still learning. He didn't know this stuff when he started the semester, and he's going along. And the grades I put in for Craig, he ended up with a 67%, which was a D. Now, that in a traditional system, Jill would have gotten an A, Craig would have gotten a D. But at the end of the period, at the end of this semester, they have both reached the pinnacle. They've both mastered the skills that they need to master. So why should we punish Craig for learning just because he didn't know stuff at the beginning of it? That's what you're supposed to come in not knowing it, and then we teach you and you learn it. So his should be more of a normal progression, but he shouldn't be punished with that poor grade for actually learning it. And unfortunately, sometimes Craig's going through the first three grades. He's like, 3 grades, I can't even break a 50%. You know what? I don't care about this class anymore. I'm going to quit. And he doesn't extend to that mastery level. I plateau out. My blue line just stops at the 50. We don't want that to happen. We want kids to know it's like, hey, we got the whole time. We're never going to give up on you, and we're going to keep working. And no matter where you started, you can still be successful in this class and in this school. So just an analogy I wanted to use. So what are we looking at? How are we going to determine what marks these students are going to get? So it's something I like to refer to as evidence of learning. So all the things that students are doing in class can be used as evidence of learning. So next slide, Beth. So teachers are like detectives, and we're going to be looking for the evidence everywhere. So I put, this is something I used in one of the professional learning sessions this year. It's like, well, what can we look at? What are all the things how are we going to collect this evidence? So as you look through the list there, you see some stuff: writing samples, student projects, students reading, having the kids read to you, talking to them about their reading. That all makes good sense. Formative assessment is usually a quicker, short assessment where the teacher is trying to determine, do they understand it? What do I need to teach next? Do I need to reteach this? And then the summative assessment, that's more of the unit test that most of us are familiar with, kind of a big, comprehensive test. And those are all, can be counted, but they're not the only things that we can count. And some of the most powerful ones that we can do is when I look at anecdotal or observational notes. What are the teachers observing when they look at kids working in groups, in small groups, when they're having a reading conference, when they're having a writing conference, when they see kids doing classwork? What are you noticing? Because that's where we can really see if a student can come up, maybe they can't do great on that summative assessment. If they can come up to my desk and really articulate what they've learned in class, that's just as important. It really shows that they've learned it. Next slide, Beth. So I had my wife, Heather, who's a kindergarten teacher in another district. I had her look through the slides the other day. I said, see if there's anything you feel I'm leaving out in my 107 slides. And she goes, well, did you talk about observing the kids? I go, yes, I got on. We're going to observe the kids without question. He goes, did you talk about, sitting down and talking to kids? I go, yes, conversations. We got on there. We're good. So just another graphic here. I wanted to use it. Some these things, the daily work that kids do and observing how kids are responding to your teaching in the class, and then sitting down and conferring with students and just talking to them about their learning is some of the most powerful evidence of learning that we can record about our students. Next slide, Beth. All right, so what are we looking at? So I know, okay, what am I going to collect all this evidence? So that comes down to what I said are the essential skills or the priority standards. So it's like at the end of the year. So I used to teach 5th grade. So we'll use me for example. At the end of 5th grade, what do I want all my students to know before they leave and go to middle school? What do I want them to know? And we kind of look at our standards are they these three things? Are they endurance standard, which is going to be not just for this grade level, but beyond? Is it a high leverage standard that can be applied to more than one content area? Or is it a readiness standard? It's like, hey, they need to know this before they can go on to the next level. So my 5th graders need to know this if they're going to be successful in 6th grade. So as we determine, we tried to shake down our list of standards, and we'll take our 40 math standards. Like, hey, we want to get it down to about 8 priorities. Like, what are the core essential skills for these kids to be successful? We're still going to teach everything, but we're going to report on in those progress reports in that grade card on these priority standards. So we're collecting evidence on these priority standards. Next slide, Beth. So how are we going to do that? So we had to develop the closest, it's not exactly a perfect analogy, but the closest way to describe it is this is a scoring guide for each of those priority standards. And it's called a proficiency scale. So we're going to measure if a student is proficient or have mastered the standard. So let me give you a little breakdown of what each of these looks like. And I know it's a lot of words. We're not going to read everything. But at the very top, it says operations and decimals, adding and subtracting decimals. That is what's going to show up on the report. Hopefully that's pretty family-friendly language that students and parents are going to understand. The black line there, that's the actual standard that we get from the state of Missouri. So what we had teachers and some curriculum authors do is they took that standard, and if you look at that level 3, which is the mastery level, the ME level, is we unpack that. What does it mean to add and subtract whole numbers and decimals? So it's like, okay, well, what are the different learning targets? What are the lessons we're going to teach so that kids will be able to master this? So we kind of unpacked it in these different check boxes. So if they can do these things consistently, we feel like, yes, they have mastered adding and subtracting whole numbers and decimals. Then we look down at the level 2, which is the still developing. That's, okay, where do we start? So those are kind of the beginning, the building blocks for this standard. Usually those contain vocabulary. We need to know the academic vocabulary, and it might be some prerequisite skills. So you can see there's some addition, subtraction, maybe at different place values than what we're asking at this grade level, but stuff we need to get started so we know exactly the formative assessments start to happen down here so we know what to teach so we get that mastery level. If they're in between those, well, they can do everything down here at the beginning skills, but not everything consistently at that mastery level. That's why we have that nearing mastery, just to let you know what progress we're making. Now, up at the top, the exceeding expectations. You'll see those are not check boxes. Those are bullets. And that's because those are just suggestions. Because once you have shown us that you've mastered it and you start working beyond that, that's when we consider you exceeding expectations. So maybe you're transferring your knowledge that you've learned here to another content. I'm using what I've learned in math to solve some problems in science. Or maybe my 5th graders are working on 6th grade level math at this point. Those are the kinds of things I'm looking for exceeding. But I want to be clear that that's not the target. Mastery is the target. Some kids will get there, but that's not our expectation forever. So when I say this, I just want to be clear that EE does not equal an A, ME does not equal a B, NM does not equal a C. It's a different system. They don't equate the same way. Our target is mastery of essential skills. Next slide, Beth. So this is a 4th grade language and grammar scale. So you kind of see at the mastery level. excuse me. We're working on some capitalization and conjunctions, and then some punctuation and dialogue. And then, so we look down at the still developing. It's like, well, where are we going to start? What formative assessments are we going to do to see if they're ready for that? And then I put our little young man on a bike there to let us know that's our target. That's riding the bike. And that's where we're trying to get. And then one more slide, one more example of a proficiency scale. This is a phonics and decoding. This one's from first grade. So you can kind of see we get into combining some different sounds and identifying spelling with some different long and short vowels and some different blends and digraphs. And then below that, the still developing, we'll start with knowing our letter sounds and basic word patterns and difference between the vowel and the consonant. So it gives teachers a clear idea of where do I start and what's my end goal. Teacher can sit down with the student and say, okay, here's where you're at. You can decode words and contexts. You can identify letters, but we still need to work on combining sounds. That's something we have to work on. Same conversation can happen with parents. So you know exactly what your student is working on, where they are, and what's next. All right, so all of this leads up to what's this new report card? So I've got some examples. This is taken off of third grade prototype report card. So I just want to be clear that the report card's not going to look exactly like what I'm going to show you. This has the content of the report card, but the report card will still be accessed through Tyler 360, our student information system. Next slide, Beth. So we have attendance and we have the academic rubric that I've talked about a little bit. That'll be on there. Next slide, Beth. We have behaviors for supporting student success, and we have something similar on our report card now, but this one, you would only get marked if the teacher had a concern about something. If I felt one of my students was not using time effectively, I might put an X in there, and then I would follow up with a comment about why that X was there. Now, we also tied it in, if you see in parentheses, those are the Lindbergh success skills that I'm going to pause for a second and let Tara talk.
Yes, so our success skills have been developed over the last few years as well. That was a combination of working with our Student Life Board Advisory and our Teaching and Learning Board Advisory to really look at those skills that kids need beyond life in Lindbergh to be successful as adults. So do they understand who they are as learners? Do they understand their strengths and how to advocate for themselves? Do they have the 4 C's, the ability to communicate and collaborate and be creative and to think critically? And then obviously a big part of that is also that work ethic and effort. Do our students have those skills in terms of knowing how to follow through on their work and how to make sure that they complete their work, that they take feedback in order to grow their work? A lot of what you hear Craig talk about tonight is really about growth mindset and how our students identify that learning is something that is always happening. And that's a skill that we develop outside of the academic components. How are we engaging with our peers? Are we able to socially be respectful to one another? So that's where you see those correlations happen with the success skills. And those success skills are things that we start in our early childhood program, and then we continue to develop as students move through our high school.
All right, thank you, Tara. Back to me. Only 97 more slides to go, so hang in there, audience. All right, so I took each content area and gave it a slide here, just giving an example of what we're going to kind of look at. You have the 3 trimesters, and then over on the side, on the left-hand side, you have the priority standards. So in this grade, third grade, in base 10, we have rounding, addition, subtraction, multiplication. Under fractions, we have understanding fractions and comparing fractions. And then in geometry and measurement, we have area and perimeter and shared attributes of shapes. So those are the things we're going to be looking at. Now, you'll notice that those are in blue. Those are high protein. So when we put these prototype report cards on the website, you'll be able to click on the link and it will take you to that proficiency scale. So you know exactly what the target is. What were the prerequisite skills? What's the academic vocabulary that we're looking at? So there'll be all of our proficiency scales will be available on the website, and then they will also be available next year when you log into SIS as a parent. There's some different tiles that you have, and one is student assessment. So You click on that one if you want your FastBridge scores or your NWEA scores or your MAP scores. There'll be another one next to it, and that will be the grade level proficiency scale. So you'll be able to access these on the Lindbergh website and through Tyler 360, the parent portal. But I want to point a few things out. Let me go back for just a second. So if you look down at the fractions and then the geometry measurement, you notice that some things are grayed out. So there will be some things that are grayed out because we know that the pacing of our instruction, we're not going to get to fractions till the second trimester. We're not going to get to geometry until the third trimester. So instead of putting NA not assessed and all those blanks, some things will be shaded out that we know we're not going to get there yet. Next slide. Example of reading. Now this one has a few more standards because at the elementary school, reading is extremely important. We want all kids to learn how to read. So in third grade, they have quite a few, and most of the reading and writing are going to be in play the entire year. We have a few that I shaded out just to kind of give you an example. So maybe we're not getting to that nonfiction at the very beginning of the year, but you can see that we have our foundations that's where a lot of our word work, phonics and decoding happens, fiction, nonfiction, and then our reading processes, which are more of the skills and vocabulary that happens. Next slide. Writing, I didn't gray anything out because everything might be in play the entire year, but we have writing processes, which kind of goes through that pre-writing and drafting into paragraphing and then doing revisions and editing. We'll work on narrative and opinion and informational pieces. And then of course, we'll do grammar and convention so that when we do create one of these pieces, we clean it up and it's a nice, well-written piece. Now, science and social studies are a little different because the other ones are very standard driven. These are a little bit more unit driven. And then when you click on one of the proficiency scales, the standards are more the learning targets. It's just kind of how those two subjects are in elementary school. So you look, we've got a couple life science areas, and then we've got some weather and water cycle, and then we've got magnets. And then if we clicked on magnets, we would see, well, what are the actual learning targets that we're studying under magnets? Social studies on the next slide is going to look similar to that. Usually have 4 or 5 units in social studies where we'll have economics. We'll have civics, which is our government. This one in third grade is Missouri government. We'll have geography. This one's third grade is where Missouri history and Missouri geography hits. And then, of course, we'll have a history component, which in this one we have Missouri history and the Civil War. And then the next 3 slides are related arts. So instead of just art, music, and PE, and you just get meets expectations or exceeds expectations, we'll actually have some standards to let you know what are the kids working on in these classes and how are they doing. So we got examples of art, and the next slide, Beth, we have our music, and they're usually themed, like, so you see the second one there, rhythm. That's going to show up probably in all K through 5. It's going to be something with rhythm. And then our last one is PE. So usually, we're actively engaged in class. We're performing some fine motor, some gross motor skills. The one I want to go ahead and we'll bring it up now is manipulative skills. That last one shows up in all of our PE, I think. And we tried to put in parentheses exactly what that is, because that was one thing. It's like, what's the family-friendly language for manipulative skills? And we couldn't think of a good synonym that people just use in their everyday lives, other than to go through and explain it. And it's usually some kind of throwing, catching, and striking motion. So we had to. That one's a little bit longer on the report card because we felt the need to explain that a little bit. So I like this, the map analogy, because it's that communication piece where teachers are going to sit down with these proficiency scales and talk to students about where they are in their learning and what's next. And I just think it's easier to get somewhere if you know where you're going. So students will be able to show them, it's like, here's where you are in your learning, and here's what we need to work on. Families will be the same way. It's like, well, here's where your student is. Here's what's next for them. So kind of a roadmap for learning for our kids is really what standards-based learning is. My last few slides here are really just some questions that might occur that you might have. I just want to try and be proactive and answer some questions that might come up. I'm trying to fill through my notes here to make sure I'm saying everything I want in these. But what are the advantages for parents? So really, you're going to get some very specific feedback on where your student is in their learning. So that if you want to help out with them at home, you'll know exactly what they're doing. So let me go all the way back to when I said, my daughter, here she comes, she's got 71% math. What's that mean to me? How can I help her? With standards-based learning, hopefully you'll have a little bit more information where you can work directly with the student. You'll know exactly what they're doing and what's next for them. Next slide. So how does this improve teaching and learning? It allows our teachers to really personalize learning and respond to the needs of their students. So they're going to have, collecting all that evidence, they're going to know exactly where their kids are. Okay, with this group of kids, I need to work on this. This group, they're ready for this. And this group, I need to do this with them. So they're really going to be able to personalize learning and take kids, up that ladder. What's the next rung on the ladder for this group? Next slide. So why is it changing? We really just felt that we could be more clear in our communication and we could be more consistent in our practices. So I can say that I have all the confidence in the world in our teachers. They do a wonderful job. One thing though is maybe we weren't completely consistent across all the buildings and classrooms. And now we have a consistent set of priority standards that we're all working towards. So we're all working toward the same goal. And we also have consistent definitions of what mastery is for those standards. So that in turn will be good for our students. It will also be good for the teachers as they have conversations with one another about best practices and what's been effective in their classroom so others can try it. And then we're going to be very clear with our communication. So you should know where your student is in the learning and what the next step is. How does this improve education? Similar to a slide a few ago, but it's the consistency. We've got the clear standards. It allows our students to be responsive, or allows our teachers to be responsive to the needs of the students and really personalize the learning so we can get the best growth out of our students. So what if you have additional questions? I'm sure no one's going to have any questions at all next year when we completely change the report card and our grading practices. But if you do, please contact Tara Sparks and I will give you her. No, you can at any time, you can reach out to me. I'll be happy to have a conversation with you about things and the lenses we look through and how we arrived at this. And I always love to hear feedback, especially, people might have some experiences at other schools that went through this. So anytime you want to have a conversation about elementary grading, just reach out to me. My email address is on there. You can also reach out to your classroom teachers and our building administrators. But at the bottom there, I did put thank you for your patience, because I will say this is it's new to everybody. So it's not just new to the parents. It's not just new to the students. This is new to our teachers. Now they've been receiving some professional learning on this year, but they're not at the mastery level. So the instruction is going to be solid. I'm not worried about that. But when you ask them about a proficiency scale, it's new to them. They're still learning as well. Same thing with our building administrators. But that's why I'm happy to help out in any way I can. So if they don't have the answers, then please come to me. But we do appreciate you giving us some grace as we make this change, because we do think it's the best thing for our students. We do think it's the best thing for learning in our schools, and we appreciate your patience. One more slide, Beth. And this, which I know Beth and Tara love, this is my last slide.
All right, we have, please use the Q&A button to ask us questions, because I think one of the things that we're very cognizant of is that communication around all of this work is going to be ongoing, and it's going to be something that we think maybe at times that we've really nailed it, and there will be something that you have an additional question about that we were not clear on. So the Q&A slides, or the Q&A is here. There is a first question about how the trimesters are affecting the school year. And Craig, did you want to answer that? I saw you said I'll answer it.
Oh, sure. So we did a lot of work with calendar to try and make sure that it doesn't have a big effect on the school year. So sometimes when we're having a professional learning day at elementary or a record day at elementary, secondary will be having the opposite perhaps, but we tried to make sure that our schedule pre-K through 12 stayed the same. So elementary and secondary won't have different days off. We may be doing different things at the different levels here as a school, but we tried for our families to keep the schedule very comparable. One thing I didn't mention, we didn't have the slides, but since we're talking about trimesters, Chair, I just wanted to say that next school year, we will see the return of curriculum night at the beginning of the year. So we're working out the logistics of that, but there will be a chance where teachers will be hosting a 1-hour session where they're going to go through what to expect in the school year. That's not necessarily just about standards-based learning, but it's been a few years since we've done it. And then our parent-teacher conferences will happen 2 times during the school year. So the end of the first trimester is November 4th. The records day where teachers will do the report cards is on November 8th at the elementary level. And then we'll have a 2-week window after that where teachers will have their parent-teacher conferences, similar that we've done the last couple of years. And then we will have another set of conferences after February 16th when the second trimester. So we did that because we want, with this new report card, a chance for you to get together with the teacher and talk through. And if you have questions, you'll be able to ask those and get the answers that you need.
All right, at this time, there aren't any other questions in the Q&A, but as Craig shared, please reach out to either one of us. You're also welcome to reach out to me at tsparks@lindberghschools.ws.
Everyone write that down. Go to her first.
Because as we said, it helps us when we know what questions are still lingering out there so that we can make sure that there's a level of clarity for our families.
All right, well, I hope you all had as much fun as I did.
Thank you.